All right, today I'm gonna install a receiver hitch, OEM factory receiver hitch on my wife's 2019 Jeep Compass Sport. I got the kit from the dealership. It comes with the replacement fascia molding, hardware, instructions, tow hook cover, and the tow hitch. I'm just gonna drop down this OEM lower fascia, and then on the inside there's going to be some stencil marks to cut out the opening to put the new fascia trim, and it looks like it's going to be a fairly easy job. I'm not going to go ahead and do the wiring. I did get wiring for it, but this is really just for a bike hitch for now. I am going to put some wiring so it can tow this with some kayaks on it, but that's going to be at a later date. For right now, I do have it up on some blocks. This is kind of optional. I just have these wooden ramps just to make a little more clearance for myself, but it looks like you can pretty easily do it just as is, you know, working underneath. It's got a fairly high rear to it, so it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm going to get started with going through the instructions. It looks like there's only about 3 bolts underneath somewhere, and then there should be around 5 clips on each side, and then 8 clips across this front edge to pull the whole thing down. So let me get underneath and I'll see if I can show you where the bolts are. All right, here's the view from the underside. You can see the muffler is right here. There's the rear fascia. You have a T30 Torx right here. There's also one right here. The other 2 are the, you got what would hold on your mud flaps if you have mud flaps, but they're just holding the fascia to the inner wheel liner. And you have 2 8mm regular bolts up here. I'm gonna start by doing that. So let me get the hardware loose and start unclipping the tabs. All right, so correction with the 3 bolts. They were talking about 3 bolts. They weren't including the 2 lower fascia ones. There's actually, once you got the wheel liner removed, it's those 2, and there's another one tucked right up there. There's another 8mm. All right, another correction. That's actually a 7mm up there. So you got the 7mm with the small washer up in the corner, and these 8mm with the large washer are where the mud flaps go. Here's the clips. They're pretty much impossible to push from the inside, so what I did was grabbed onto the edge of this with one hand and reached into the back and kind of tried to push down as I yanked this. Let me pop the other side off and then work my way towards the middle. So I'm just slowly working my way across, and there it goes. And actually, you're not gonna be able to see it. There's a mold line where I cut. I feel like this is gonna probably be the hardest part of the install.
You're right, you're absolutely right.
So let me get the hitch up, and then I'll start worrying about cutting the inside of the valance and getting the trim piece back on. The rebar does need to come off. That's going to be replaced by the hitch. The hitch is going to act like the rebar, I believe. There's 3 13mm on each side, 2 here, 1 accessible through this hole. So let's get those out. It's just a tight fit. All right, there we go. All the holes that we're gonna use have these little protective plastic covers on them. So I'm just gonna get those off. We got 3 bolts for each side that come with the kit that use a 21mm socket. So I'm gonna grab the hitch, slide them in. Got one bolt comes in through here, and 2 into the side. So the hitch is actually gonna go up in this cavity right here. That's pretty tight fit.
Do it like a tiger.
Got one side, so now I can push up on it. It looks like when they welded it, it just kind of pushed out a little bit, so it's got to come up to clear this bottom lip corner, but it can't easily go up because it's pushing on plastic right there. There we go. You can see it kind of misshaped that a little bit. All right. It's a nice fit. Let me get underneath so I can line these up. I'm I'm only gonna use an impact to kind of zip these in place. I'm gonna torque them. I think it said 75 foot-pounds. I'll check the instructions for that, but rather than run them all in by hand, I'll just use this to get them up there. I just set it on setting 1 so I can't overdo it. I thought I saw 75, and I did. I saw some online instructions. It looked like the same printout as the instructions I got from the factory with this kit, but those said 74 foot-pounds. This is saying 122 foot-pounds, so I'm gonna go with the 122 foot-pounds. All right, let me get the other side. So like I said, this is probably going to be the hardest part of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you could see, you could see a really light imprint. That's the shape that you got to cut out. And then you have the piece that goes in. Now I measured this, and it measures the opening it needs to be is 4 1/4 inches. And the cutout is 4 3/4 inches. It could be big, you know, since there's the trim piece right there. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut this around 1/8 to almost 1/4 of an inch shy of the line, and then individually cut out what I need for the openings. I'm gonna cut those out by hand. I have an idea for cutting this out, and I'll get set up and show you in a second. Hopefully it works. I'm going to attempt this in a way that I understand not everyone has one. You could probably use a really sharp knife if you lay it down on something soft like a moving blanket and take a bunch of cuts, and then you'll be able to get through it, I would assume, fairly easily. I have an air-powered saw. This is made for body work, like sheet metal work. It's just a reciprocating saw. So I'm gonna drill a hole somewhere near the center and then work my way down and cut around there, and we'll see how it goes. You could probably use like a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. The only problem with that with plastic is it's gonna melt. It's gonna bind up in the blade. It's gonna melt to the cutting wheel, so it's gonna be a nightmare of cleaning and melted plastic. So I'll start about 1 inch away, and I'll slope down and cut against it.
Great save, babe.
As I drop the thing and break the blade. Let's see what I can do. That's good. It does kind of melt the plastic too, but it's not really binding up on the blade that much, so I think this is going to work. They're cheap from Harbor Freight. If you do any sheet metal work, it's good for cutting off old body panels and stuff like that. It's a decent tool to have. Kind of melted itself back together, but I might need to do a little trimming. Now for this, you could use a nice sharp box cutter, put it on its edge and take skim passes, but that was good for the bulk of it. It definitely melted back together. Okay, let me get a box cutter and I'll try that just for the people that don't have an air saw or want to get an air saw. It is a pretty new blade. Don't cut towards yourself. Ah, yeah, this stuff cuts super easy. So you'd probably just be able to go in and score it and just take a bunch of scores and then pop the piece out. Well, let me see how this fits in the opening. Oh yeah. Alright, now it's just going to be a matter of cutting the tab holes out. What I did was, you can see the outline. I used a drill that's around the same size as the thickness. It doesn't quite need to be that wide because the tab isn't that thick. The tab does need to be able to fit through this opening, so it's wider than the tab is. The tab hooks on the top edge. It's going to come through that way, and then the top edge is the most important edge. So I drilled 2 holes, and then I'm going to take my air saw and just cut between. Got my slots all cut out and trimmed up. I did go around and dress the edges with an X-Acto knife just to kind of get in the corners and get a little melted plastic out. I didn't try to test fit this yet, so you're going to see it at the same time I do.
Oh, goody.
let's give it a try. That's looking like it fits pretty terribly. I'm seeing gaps as far as the tab slots go. Yeah, that sucks. Dude, these tab slots don't even line up. Yeah, that's not even close to locking in place. How the hell those tabs will never lock in? You'd think. God, it looks terrible. Would have been better off just not doing the tabs and epoxying it in place. What is hanging up? That doesn't even make sense. Alright, I'm gonna have to figure this out. I don't understand why the bottom tabs will never lock. With the angle that they're on, they'll never lock. Alright, I'm gonna take this out. I may end up drilling holes in these tabs and zip tying them in from the back too. I'm just gonna trim this opening a little more, see if I can get it to fit. Well, this isn't going as expected, although I do have it figured out. I think it's gonna be fine. You can see all the clamps. I had to get some plastic epoxy. I took a heat gun. Some of the tabs, to get this front edge to sit flat, you need to bend the tab downward. Other ones, you need to bend the tab upward. Ideally, what you're gonna do is just cut around a thin slot right around the middle of the opening. Don't cut out to the whole opening that they show you on the back for the tabs. For the insert here, it is best to cut. I'd cut like, you know, around 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch away from the line. You want to cut it to the line because cutting it to the line gives you that freedom to kind of pull it up or down in a way to get it to work out with the tab. So I basically used the heat gun, heated up the tabs, kind of pushed them with a screwdriver to get them into a place where I got the edge to a place where I really liked it. And then I put some epoxy a little bit in between the two layers, but mostly around the tab area, and then clamped it in place. I did have to add, there's like a little recess down here, so I did put the original nut that I'd taken off of the impact bar. It's just kind of filling the gap, so I'm able to get the clamp to work in that area. All in all, it looks like it's going to work out okay. I can't even honestly, other than just cutting a thin slot and then modifying from there, I can't say what would have been a better way to do it. I would assume using the factory cutout lines would have been the best way to do it, but that's not the case. And I did see in the instructions, there should be like a wedge kind of clip that slips in there, and it's got a flat bottom. I'll put a picture up on the screen. It's not included with this kit, so I'll just kind of maybe clamp it in place and use a little bit of epoxy to keep it. This zip tie is keeping it in place for now, but you know, even with the zip tie there, it's not flat against the bottom. All in all, it's gonna work out. As much as a nightmare as this seems to be, it's okay. It's gonna work out. I'll come back with you in a little bit and we'll see how this goes. Before I take this stuff apart, I just wanted to show you my setup because it's not very obvious how you can get in. You know, you have to, I'm working on that clamp, so I do have a clamp here, but you know, right on the side right there, it wasn't able to push these two together. So I took another clamp and then took a socket to kind of bridge the gap. And I had one here and one here, so it pushed down this whole center section. And then things like these tabs on the corner, they wanted to pull away. Now you can see, you know, it's minus that little corner, but that's not even that big deal. It was able to pull tight. I took a vice grip on each side, and I just kind of clamped on and used the weight of the vice grip to kind of pull it up. And by pulling the tab up, you're pulling the insert closer to the fascia. That worked, and you can see here also, you know, I couldn't get on the side right there, so I put another socket. The only ones that are going to be slightly difficult, this one shouldn't be a problem. I have two left. This one shouldn't be a problem because I can access from here. This one I might have to get creative because, you know, there's no access with the clamp. So let me get this all apart again, and then I'll work on these last two, and we'll take it from there and see how it goes. I had to get creative with these bottom tabs. I wasn't able to see how that one's kind of showing. I needed to push it down more, so I stuck some sticky back foam right there to kind of keep these things in place, and then put these clamps facing outward. So it pretty much can almost see a little bit of that one, but once it's mounted, you're not going to see that far down. So I just got these last two to do, and then I should be done. All right, it's all finished, all installed. It didn't come out bad at all. You really can't tell along the top edge where those were. The only ones are like the very bottom, but I mean, you can't see it from, you'd have to be underneath to see. So not the end of the world. I was looking online, and actually other people have having problems with that. Even the dealerships don't really do the cutting. Some of the dealerships were saying that they tend to fall out. Mainly it's because they don't come with these side clips. I epoxied in some things on the back side. I didn't really show it. I epoxied like a nut behind it just to keep it from being able to pull this side tab through. So all in all, it looks great. It'll do the job. It'll hold the bike rack. It'll even pull this little trailer. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.